Hey everyone, and welcome to 121 in Flux. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we talk about movies on this show. Not new films, not new releases, typically older stuff. Sometimes they're relatively recent, but this one is right in the nostalgia slot, and by that I mean it's in our lifetimes, but it's actually quite a bit old now, as in it's like 20 plus years old, and
But
that
but you don't
is.
really think of it as old, do you?
I don't think it was an old movie, but there's this weird thing now when I'm watching movies from the 90s where there's this weird kind of like this is starting to look like it's old now. Not in the same way that an older movie looks, but it's like it looks like it's of an era. Whereas movies that I watch from the last like 10, 15 years don't feel like they've got an era to them yet. Whereas
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because you don't notice it until whatever comes next
yeah, and then you look
replaces it.
back, yeah, and you see it. Things have changed, and now it's got a look to it. And so yeah, this is also notable because this is the winner of the Patreon vote for the month. Each month on Patreon over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Our patrons at the $5 tier and up get to vote on a movie we're going to do once a month. And throughout September they voted, and the winner of that vote was this movie, which is Seven, which is David Fincher's first big movie, really. I mean, not his first movie, of course. Alien 3's notorious. In fact, we've done Alien 3 before. It'll be quite funny if we end up doing all of these films in order of release, because so far we're on
So far,
track.
yeah.
So far we're on track for that. So this came out in 1995. It is obviously a thriller. All the movies in the options for the vote were all like crime and serial killer thrillers. They all had that kind of vibe to them. So we'll start spoiler free for a little bit at least. Maybe not too long since it's Seven and it's a movie that most people have know about or have seen, and most people will be familiar with the line "What's in the box."
Yeah,
But
it kind of
we'll
took a life of its own, didn't it?
but we'll get to that much later in the spoilers. But so that's what we're going to talk about. So of course Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, and a whole lot of recognizable faces in really small parts that I only recognize now, like today,
Yeah.
like the mortician. Like he was, he was on Outcast and House of Cards. He was in the recent Fantastic Four. What's his name? Reggie Cathy.
Okay.
He's not bald in this though. It was his
Yeah.
voice. I heard his voice and went, "That's him."
No, you're right. It's a very distinctive voice.
Very distinct voice. Head of the SWAT teams. What's his face from Scrubs?
Yeah.
McGinley. Is that his name? So it's
Yeah.
him. And then there was another one. There was definitely another one. There was another small role that was filled out with someone that I'd recognise from stuff, and I can't remember because there was definitely three. But regardless, lots of small roles in here. I was like, oh man, like I know them from something that they didn't do for another 20 years. It's just kind of weird looking at it now. But also you got Arlie Ermey is the police chief,
Yeah.
obviously famous from Full Metal Jacket and stuff, and obviously someone else who's relatively famous is in a big role, but it's kind of a spoiler for later on in the movie because they actually kept it a secret. You'll notice that the killer's credit isn't in the opening titles. It's actually right at the
It comes
start.
up last, yeah.
Yeah, it comes up at the start of the end credits, and that's a very TV thing to do actually. Like they'll have the guest stars and stuff, but they'll save that one surprise name for the end because they don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
So
It's rare to see in movies, actually.
yeah, but they kept it secret. So fair play to them. It's funny though, knowing who it is though. As soon as you hear his voice, because you hear his voice before you see him, and it's like, oh, I know that voice. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's also one of those weird ones where if they'd just thrown his name in all the credits at the start, because there's typically quite a lot of names.
yeah, yeah,
You probably wouldn't really be thinking about it.
yeah. I think it'd be 50-50. I feel like you'd either just forget you saw the name, or you'd maybe realize halfway through, wait a minute, that's a big name. Why have we not seen him yet? Like, and you would sort of
Mm,
just assume, okay, he must be playing the killer. Like,
yeah,
like I feel like. So I get why they did it. I get why the thought was, no, let's just keep it out of the credits. Let's just keep it a secret. Um, and thankfully the internet wasn't as a mainstream thing back then because I feel like that's exactly the sort of thing that would have been all over the
oh
place.
yeah, set pictures.
Yeah, set pit. Well, I wasn't even thinking that. I was thinking just when it came out, like on the first night. Like if you didn't see it the opening day, you're probably going to get that
Mm.
spoiled for you that so and so is playing the killer. Uh, so what is Seven? Why is it called Seven for a start? Well, it's because it's a serial killer movie, and the killer is basing his crimes on the seven deadly sins, and the whole idea is that he's going to have seven victims, and each one represents one sin. Um, and it also takes place over a week, which I don't think actually is that important in the grand scheme of things. It's just the idea of the theme of the number seven keeps coming up. Keeps coming up. Even at the end of the movie, there's like a time, and it's like, oh, what time is it? Oh, it's 7 o'clock. Of course, it's 7 o'clock. Why wouldn't it be 7 o'clock? The
Yeah.
movie's called Seven. Everything's seven.
I hope there's 7 references to Seven.
Oh, there
Yeah,
may
right.
be.
So the 7 sins, the 7 days of the week, the
Seven.
time
Yeah.
7.
There might be.
There might be. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I really hope that Fincher went out of his way and put 7 in.
I could. How gutted would he be though if he did that, but then he had to cut one of the scenes for another reason? He'd be like, "No, there was only six."
Just leave it in there regardless. Like, this is essential.
It's essential. Even though it's got a horrible take with a really bad mistake in it, well, leave it in because it's got one of the 7 references to the 7 in it. We need to do it. It's been a long time since I watched this, and you'd seen it before as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been a long time since I'd seen this, and one of the first things that crossed my mind as it was starting up, I was like, okay. Normally when I watch movies from the 90s now, they have a 90s look to them. And to its credit, I actually think visually this movie's aged mostly pretty well. Like, it could have been shot last year, and I wouldn't have questioned anything. You could have told me that.
Yeah, like you say, it has a look and a style where you know it's from the 90s because you know, but otherwise it's aged pretty well.
Yeah, well, it does to a point, and it definitely has a style, but it's like, it's so Fincher that it doesn't necessarily stick out as being in the 90s. It just kind of feels like this
It's
could...
true, because he kept his style going.
Yeah, this could have been shot last year, and I wouldn't have known otherwise, with one or two exceptions. And I actually tweeted about this as I was watching it, that the opening title sequence is so 90s that it hurts.
Oh, it is. And I will add into that the end credits music.
Yeah, sure, that's fair. But when it's actually shooting like actors and stuff, like it's timeless. Yeah. Well, not timeless, but it certainly doesn't feel dated. But then when it's the opening titles and the end credits, it feels like super 90s. The music choice, the effects, and I have to give it a bit of a love-hate relationship because I actually like the movie a lot. I don't want to sound like I don't like the movie, but I did actually hold a bit of a grudge as I was watching it because it was really dawning on me this time. Because right now on Screams After Midnight, me and Tim are working through the Saw franchise, and I feel like this movie is actually largely responsible for that franchise, because, and it's not really this movie's fault. Don't get me wrong. It's not David Fincher's fault that someone else tried to imitate his movie, but a lot of Saw is really imitating and really trying to do what Seven did.
This is what I refer to as the Blair Witch Project syndrome, where as a thing on its own, perfectly fine, if not a great, depending on your opinion, but definitely no problem. But the thing that its legacy is the problem, and it kind of taints it a little bit.
There was a few things. The murder scenes themselves, and the sort of, you don't see much of it. You always see the aftermath, but when they describe what he did to the victims and what he made them do, and some of this sounds.
Saw basically went, let's just show that.
Yeah, but like a lot of it sounds very Jigsaw. The way it's like, one is like the woman's given a choice either to call for help, but she'll be disfigured, or like she can take the pills and kill herself, and like it feels very Jigsaw. And so not only that, but the other thing that was sort of striking me with Fincher's visual style is that the movie's very dark. Even when it's in broad daylight, it still feels dark visually. And again, that's something that Saw, to a much worse, worse is not a word, but that's
how bad it is.
But yeah, it's trying to emulate that. Like, Saw has this shitty visual filter over the whole thing, where it looks like it's got that bluey, greeny tint, and it doesn't look anything like Seven, but it is trying to have that same effect. That even when they're shooting a scene during the day, it feels kind of murky and this world's shit.
That green tint, especially, is something I really associate with Fincher.
Yeah, which is funny because I don't even think this movie really has that much of a green tint, but it still has that kind of feeling where it does, even in daylight, it still feels like. They're never facing the sun. It's always silhouette.
No, it's like when you wear sunglasses and it kind of dims a little bit. The light just goes, or like the 3D glasses in the cinema.
Yeah.
Everything's a little bit dimmer, but it's just noticeable that it's not natural anymore.
Yeah, you feel like you're watching a 3D movie without the 3D effect.
Yeah.
Almost. But obviously it's very intentional. It's a dark world. It's actually kind of funny, not long into this movie, because the movie, a big thing in this movie is that the city's kind of a character in and of itself. They keep talking about how this place is worse. Brad Pitt's character's just transferred from somewhere else, and he even wanted to transfer. And Morgan Freeman's character is like, oh, why did you transfer here? This is like, no one ever... It actually almost reminded me of Gordon transferring to Gotham in Batman comics. So that's how year one kind of starts, and but like and they keep talking about the city and how dangerous it is. They keep telling stories about how like someone get mugged and then get their eyes shot out last week, and it happened, just down the block from me. And it's like all these
Yeah, it's not even really that big a deal because it's an everyday occurrence almost.
yeah, which is a big theme of the movie, and we'll talk about that in depth in the spoilers. But I was like, yeah, they didn't actually mention where this city was, and I was like, where is this city? And I actually googled. I was like, what city's Seven set in? Because they've not mentioned it. Like they've intentionally not said anything. And sure enough, it's intentional. Like it's a fictional city that no one ever actually quite says. Some people have claimed that it's certain places, but they've always been shot down. It's like no, it's intentionally not a real place. It's intentionally just it represents any sort of city.
Awful place. Yeah.
It very well could be Gotham City. Like it's that dark that this is how frequent all the crime is. It has that kind of feel to it. They shot it in I think Philadelphia and some of it in California. So people have claimed, it's standing in for Philly or it's standing in for LA, but it's not really. It's
it could stand in for New York or Seattle, anywhere you want really.
But they intentionally never, because they often talk about here. They keep saying, what's it? You just moved here. How you liking it? They keep
how long
here,
have you lived here?
But they never say where it is, and that's very intentional. It happens too often not to be. So that's a big theme of the movie. Also, it's constantly bloody raining. Amusingly, the scene at the end, the big scene that takes place at the end, is like one of the only scenes that take place outside that I can think of that aren't pissing down in rain.
It's also one of the only scenes not in the city.
That is true. Yeah, they go outside of the city and it's not raining anymore. Yeah, there's something to be said for that. But no, so I guess we like the movie. I think that's pretty obvious. It's a good movie.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I don't think I've ever heard of anyone not liking Seven. It's a pretty likable movie.
It is, isn't it? It's got a good theme to start off with. Seven Deadly Sins as a serial killer. That's pretty cool as a
serial
whole.
killer. You've got these two characters, two different detectives at different ends of the rope. Try to hunt the killer, and he's playing games with the police, and he's so smart. It's kind of insane. Although not as insane as Jigsaw would become in Saw, which is one of the big complaints that we've had over in those reviews, that he's planned out so goddamn much that it's just absolutely absurd.
Do you know what? This is one of those times where every so often I'm so glad I don't do Screams because I don't have to put myself through that shite. Just feels good.
I can smell a new Patreon tier coming. Connor has to join Peter and Tim for a known terrible movie on Screams After Midnight.
Just not Saw, please.
Well, we got 3 of them left before the new ones, so you got a chance to jump in. The option's there. That's all I'm saying.
You know what's worse? I feel like I'd be obligated to watch all the rest if I was going to jump in at 5.
You need a marathon 1 through 4.
I don't think I've got that in me.
Oh dear. So yeah, obviously one name we didn't mention was Gwyneth Paltrow. She plays Tracy, who's Brad Pitt's character's wife. And she's just moved with him to the city, and that's another big thing that's going on. A big theme of the movie, and it really because it's been a long time since I watched it, so I'd kind of forgotten a lot of what the character stuff was. Like I'd remembered the kills and how it ended, but I didn't really remember what and right at the start of the movie, you really get this idea that Morgan Freeman's character, he's literally days from retirement, 7 days specifically. He's a week from retirement, and he's grown really kind of tired of the job. He doesn't want to do, even though he's clearly very good at it. He has a good mind for it. Like he's a week from retirement, and he's still asking questions that the other cops just want to ignore and just don't want to look into.
But he's beaten down by it. He's resigned. He's like, well, what's the point? It's not going to get solved.
Yeah. Whereas Brad Pitt's detective comes in and he's eager. He's like, no, I want to change the world. I want to help. I want to do these things. And Freeman's like, no, but like you're so naive for this city. Yeah, you've done homicide, but you've never done it here. Again, there's that word showing up again here. Like you've never done it here, and so it's these two of it's the potentially naive, but certainly enthusiastic. The young cop, the go-getter, the one who is eager to do everything.
Optimistic,
yeah, the optimist. Whereas you've got the pessimist at the other end of this.
Yeah, and it's the idea of this is, like this is what this city's done to him.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, no, this is going to do it to you. You're going to go through this as well. And that's a big theme of the movie. And a big theme of the movie is apathy and like how you don't even care that all this is happening around you anymore. And that's kind of why Morgan Freeman wants to go. He's like, no, I'm part of the problem. I've realized that I'm part of the problem, and I just want to get out of it. I want to leave. I want to go somewhere else and farm or fish or do something, not be a cop anymore. Because he's like, what's the point of even trying? And he just wants to escape. And I think that's a big thing. I think Morgan Freeman's character's arc is actually the soul of the film.
Yeah,
I would say. Because obviously you get Brad Pitt as the flashy young star, and like you feel like, oh, he's like the main one, the billing. He's the one that everyone's talking about, and sure, to a point, and it has maybe the most dramatic scenes, but at the same time, it's like, no, it's actually kind of reminiscent almost of Shawshank Redemption, where like, sure, Andy's kind of the main character, but Red, it's really his story. Like, the title's about him. You've not seen Shawshank Redemption, have you?
I've seen enough to know.
Okay. That's one that we'll have to do someday, because we can't have you never having seen Shawshank Redemption. That's just...
Yeah, I've seen about 40 minutes.
That's just...
Not from 40 minutes from the start, but 40 minutes scattered throughout.
That is so depressing.
I know.
The moments you've had ruined because you've seen just random chunks of that movie. It's upsetting.
Yeah, but it's the life of a student, I guess. You just when you study something, that's it. You gotta just have things ruined.
Oh no, I told off a lecturer once for spoiling a scene from a TV show. Because he showed us a scene to study it, and I'm like, no, what are you doing? This is from season 4. Stop it right now. This is inconsiderate.
I had that with the ending of Lost, so.
No, I wasn't standing for it. I'm walking out right now.
I just had to accept that things are going to get spoiled if I haven't seen them.
Oh, dear. So, what was I saying? I was getting at something. Morgan Freeman, heart of the movie. So, yeah, obviously you've got the mystery, which is kind of, on the surface level, you've got the mystery, like, why is this happening? What are the clues? And that's obviously the entertainment level of the movie. But then there is this sort of deeper kind of thing going on, where it's about human beings and how we let things slide because we get used to them. Yeah. And that's kind of what the movie is ultimately going on about. So, obviously, very good, very dark, very stylistic.
Yes.
If I'm going to have a complaint, before we get into spoiler stuff, something that I do kind of want to complain about, actually, I do have a complaint, and it's very much something that Connor would usually complain about. I do think the audio mix is not perfectly balanced. I feel like there's a lot of dialogue that I had to turn it up. There was times when I put on subtitles because I felt like there was a lot of mumbling, there's a lot of low talking. Times when music... I
feel like it does get lost in the music.
Yeah.
I do think it's somewhat intentional. And again, this is not to defend it, because again, I do think it's a bit of a problem when you're struggling. But it's the idea that there's this apathy. Things just kind of happen. You don't really notice. You have to force yourself to pay attention.
I can appreciate that, but like I was forcing myself to pay attention, and I was still struggling to hear some sentences to the point where I actually went back 10 seconds and turned on subtitles just to see what the goddamn sentence was.
No, I agree. I think that's what the idea is, but I'm not sure it necessarily always works.
And I turned it up really loud, and then there was a scene. It was later on, they go into like a nightclub at one point, and it was so loud I had to turn it back down. Like my bass was like thumping. I'm like, damn, the neighbours are going to hate me. Because I had it up so loud though, because I wanted to hear the goddamn dialogue. So if I have a complaint, and it's a weird complaint to have with such a technical, because I think David Fincher's a director that sometimes he nails everything, right? Like I think he has some great classics in his library, and sometimes he doesn't. But the one thing he always does really well, the one thing that he pays a lot of attention to, is the technical details. He's a very in fact, I was glancing at the extras on the Blu-ray, and like all of the extras are all about technical stuff. It's all, here's a scene with all the different audio tracks separate, and you can listen to each one on its own, and here's a scene with all the angles separate, and you can look at each angle on its own. It's all technical stuff. It's all breaking down the technical elements. There's almost nothing about actually talking about the script and the themes and like all that kind of thing.
That's pretty interesting. It tells you what his mindset is, though, doesn't
it? It makes for a dry extra, I think. I don't think that's as inherently interesting as like hearing stories from the actors on set and like weird accidents that happened and all that kind of thing. But certainly,
I think it certainly appeals to less people.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting if you care about that stuff. It's interesting.
I do. I do. I still think it's drier though. Just if I'm comparing it to if I'm comparing it to like a good a good making of documentary that maybe encompasses everything. It does feel a bit drier to just like give me a bunch of angles and go through them on your own.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think the score is excellent. I think it's one of Howard Shore's underappreciated works.
Do you know?
Obviously,
it is good. I do have to say I don't love it though. It's perfect for the movie, but if there's one thing that kind of dates it a little bit, is that it does feel, and maybe this is because it's been emulated by so many other thrillers that want to be like Seven.
It definitely has, yeah.
Yeah, and this is probably why I feel this way. But it almost in reverse feels a bit cliched. Because of that.
I get what you're saying. This is a game one of those where it's like, okay, I know that this is kind of where the sound came from.
Yeah,
so it's like I could still appreciate it.
Because I've seen so many cheap thrillers over the years that have tried to have the Seven feel of this dark, grimy world that and they always have this type of music, and it feels in retrospect. Even on Screams, we did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake a couple of weeks ago, and I feel like the score on that was kind of similar to this actually.
Really?
Which obviously isn't the exact same type of movie, but even that was going for this grimy feel to it. That's what the whole movie was going for. And one of the big things we talked about in that actually was how that movie, compared to the original, it was trying to be grimy, but it felt like a Hollywood slick version of grimy, whereas the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre just was grimy, and it felt grimy, and it felt authentic. I
like the score a lot. I think it's underappreciated because obviously nowadays when you mention Howard Shore's name, people typically just talk about Lord of the Rings, which is understandable. I get why they do.
It's the best part of that movie, so yeah.
I love those movies, and I might not argue on that.
Yeah, because I'm not a fan of those movies, but I think the score's great. So.
Yeah, but this it's just so different, and it kind of really sets the tone for the movie, which is probably why it got emulated so much.
Yeah. It's actually kind of funny, actually, that this get emulated arguably a lot more than these Lord of the Rings music does, even though that's the one that everyone talks about.
Because it's easier to replicate.
You think?
Yeah. This is, Lord of the Rings, you need to be good at orchestrating a full orchestra. You got to arrange a full, full thing. Whereas this, you could do it on a handful of instruments if you wanted to do a low key version of this.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, so let's get spoilers. So full spoilers.
Yeah.
For the movie from this point on. So, like I said, apathy is a big thing with the movie, and it keeps coming back again. Like Somerset, sorry, that's Freeman's character, and Mills, who's Brad Pitt's character. They keep repeatedly, because at first they don't like each other, and like Freeman's like, oh, I'm still leaving, I'm not working on this case, and he kind of gets pulled in. It's like, even though he keeps claiming he's done, he keeps having to go look, and like, because he goes to the library. Once it becomes clear this might be about the Seven Sins, he goes to the library and he reads all night Dante and all the other stuff.
It's more of a curiosity though. Like he's not, oh, I want to stop this killer. It's more, I want to get in his head. I'm just curious.
Yeah, it definitely is, but I think what's part of what makes his character interesting is that he claims all throughout the movie, it's just a cute, because they say that like when they're looking over files, because when they finally kind of befriend each other a little bit, when his wife like asks him over for dinner, and they kind of bond a little, and he's like, oh, this is just for my curiosity, I'm not actually working the case. Like, it feels like he's saying that, but deep down he does actually want to work the case. And a big part of the movie is that they even have that debate in the bar. It's actually just before things really go down, when the killer, John Doe actually shows up. They're in the bar and they're debating once again. They're sort of their ideological views on police work, and he's like, "No, you're naive. Like everyone's like this. I'm part of the problem. I'm part of this. This is why I want out." And Brad Pitt's like, "No, I can make a difference. Like, you should try and make a difference. Like, everyone can't be like that. There's this hopeful view of the world."
I think it's, is it Morgan Freeman's character? It's just like, we're just cleaners. We tie up the loose ends, we file the paperwork, we write the records, but we don't actually solve anything.
Yeah. He feels like it's pointless, and because of that, they shouldn't even try.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I think maybe at the start of the movie, you're probably thinking, oh, like... And to an extent, it kind of is. Like, will Brad Pitt's arc be that by the end of the movie, he will sort of go through this change where he will lose all hope? And he kind of does, but it's not in the way I think you think maybe it's going to go down at the start.
No, that's it. Like you expect the whole time, Morgan Freeman's going, the city's, it breaks you.
Yeah.
And you become this jaded person. And like I say, ultimately at the end he is broken, but not in the way you expect.
But of course, the counter to that though is Freeman's character is he actually has the opposite arc because because he actually is. It's when so John Doe turns himself in, obviously played by Kevin Spacey, which is what we're dancing around during the spoiler-free section, and he turns himself in, and again it's very, very Jigsaw, and I say that, and again. This did it first. I'm just pointing out that Saw took a lot from this movie, but turns himself in, and you can tell it feels like he's turned himself in, but he's playing more of a game.
He's up to something.
There's something else here, and you can actually I think rewatching it's very interesting. You pay attention on a rewatch, you see that he does become fascinated with Brad Pitt's character between when he shows up as the photographer and Brad Pitt screams at him and tells him to piss off. And then when they go to his apartment, they kind of stumble on him through the whole FBI library sort of monitoring system. They go to this guy's apartment, and they don't even know for sure if he's the killer. They're just going to check him out, but he runs, and that's why they know, okay, he's probably him. And they find a bunch of shit in his apartment as well. But he has this opportunity to kill Brad Pitt, and he doesn't. It's almost like a Joker Batman kind of fascination element.
It is. It's like he's got more planned.
He realizes what type of person he is, and I kind of believe that at that point he changed his plans accordingly. He changed what the end of his 7 victims were going to be based on his encounter with this character
to accommodate him.
Yeah, because oh no, this is a better what's the word I'm looking for? Not masterpiece. Your
Magnum opus?
Sorry?
Is it magnum opus?
Yeah, I think that's the word I was actually looking for, but it means the same thing. Yeah, magnum opus. There was a word I was looking for. That's going to annoy me now. Not crown jewel. You know what I mean? We've said it
I do. We've done 3 different ways of saying it.
It's just the specific
this specific one.
The specific word I was looking for, I can't think of. But we've said it in 3 other ways, so it's fine. You know what I mean, right? He's going
suggestions of other ways of saying it. Comments.
Yeah, that's going to bug the shit out of me now. But so basically, he's going to be this, and I get that he's changed his plans, and so he takes him out to the desert. And like you say, it's the first time he leaves the city, and I think it's the first time it's not really been raining. Really,
it might be. It's definitely the first time it's bright. It's the first time I can think of sunlight.
And they go out into the desert, and we have the whole famous what's in the box. Delivery driver opens up, and this is where Freeman realizes, oh shit, he's in control. I need to get the gun away from him. I need to talk him down. This is he sees what his game is.
He doesn't want him to win by just killing him.
But on the trip there, they're in the car and they're driving there, and they're all mic'd up, of course. And that's another thing is that as the movie's going over the movie, they go from not liking each other and not trusting each other to bonding. The 2 detectives, because they're having that little moment when they're shaving their chest to put on the mics, and they're joking about, oh, if I shave my nipple off, is that covered by workman's comp? And they're having a little giggle there, but he's in the back seat, and they're just talking to John Doe, and they're asking him questions about who he is. Well, at this point, what does it matter if you tell us stuff about yourself? And he doesn't tell him his real name. He's sort of take it, his past has been left behind. You get the idea that this guy's just really become born again as the psychopath. He's just letting it all go. But one of the points he brings up is, it's easy to write me off as insane because that makes you feel comfortable. That makes you feel better that I'm not just another person.
Yeah, it's all these ways they're trying to probe him. They're going, hey, do you know you're insane? Because if he says that he's not insane, then they can use it against him when he tries to do an insanity play. Yeah. But it's just he's ahead of them. He just twists everything they say.
But the big thing for me in this scene, it's not even really him. I mean, John Doe's interesting to talk about, but it's how the other 2 play off of him. Because Brad Pitt keeps getting agitated. He keeps getting angry. His emotions keep coming up because he's like, oh, you're a sick bastard. You keep doing this stuff. He gets, gets emotional. Whereas Freeman the entire time, he's calm. He's considering what he's saying to him. He's thinking about it. But the big thing that comes up for me is he starts talking about why he's doing what he's doing, and he starts talking about how, well, this happens all around. There's the prostitute that he killed. There's prostitutes around. There's greedy lawyers who lie for a living. There's these obese people who just eat, and it's all apathy. We don't care. And it almost just starts sounding like Freeman's character. And I think for his character, it's this awakening. It's he's realizing, this is the other extreme version of the way I'm thinking. This is what he's doing.
Again, it's what this city does.
Yeah, and he sees that. And that's a big thing. So when he's confronted with this big situation of okay, Gwyneth Paltrow's head's in the box, Brad Pitt's just found out that she was pregnant, and that he's been so obsessed with his work that he didn't even know she's been missing all day, or even 2 days at this point. I think maybe 2 days.
No, it was today because he said
that day? Okay.
Yeah, John Doe said I left this morning after you left for work.
But he's not even Look at that. I think most people who are like married, like they usually check in at least once during the day, probably. Like lunchtime, you might have a phone call or something. Especially now with like mobile phones and you're texting and stuff. You know, say, oh, I'll pick up something for dinner or whatever, something stupid, like something normal and mundane. But there's been nothing. Like obviously, he's not been in contact with his wife all day, and he's not even realised that there's anything to be worried about. So again, it feels like John Doe's making a point with that. Like you're so wrapped up in your work and being obsessed and all the rest of it. But
again, the saying that he didn't realize that she was pregnant. Obviously, she wasn't showing, but he hadn't paid attention to any other signs. Like they're all drinking it around dinner, but she wasn't.
Exactly, yeah. Which makes him a pretty shitty detective, by the way.
It does, but again, it's the idea that he was too obsessed with this case. He was too, too focused on the showmanship, and he is apathetic to the regular events.
Yeah, you could almost argue that the killer is a mix of the two characters, because he's the showman who wants to do the big grand things, which is kind of what the killings themselves are. It's like, oh no, it's dramatic examples to shake people out of apathy. And then, Freeman's character, he's the apathetic one who's like, oh, everyone doesn't care, everyone's the same, everyone's guilty of this, including himself. And the killer's kind of a mix of that. He's like, he feels that way, so he's using the dramatic examples that Brad Pitt's character would use to, he's kind of this.
The apathy. Yeah.
He's an extreme version of the two of them combined, which maybe makes him an interesting foil for both of them.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, they have this standoff, and I think Freeman's character in this final scene is. Like he's trying to talk him down, and he's like, "No, he wins if you shoot him. If you do this, he wins." And obviously, the final two people, he's envy. John Doe is envy because he was jealous of his life and being married and the wife and all the rest of it, and he wants Brad Pitt to become wrath by like returning to kill him.
He deserves to be killed.
Yeah, for vengeance. And obviously Brad Pitt does shoot him, and I keep using the actor names because I'm so used to these people being these people.
It happens, doesn't it? When the actors get too big.
Yeah, they're A-listers. So when they're A-listers, you just think of the actor names. Yeah. But and the whole thing ends, and he keeps cutting back to the helicopter, and they're like commenting on what's going on, and I love that when the box shows up, he's like, "We've got a box! We've got a box! Someone call bomb squad! We got a box!"
It's pretty comical, and again, when he sends the delivery guy running away, and you just watch the helicopter track him.
Actually, what I thought was funny about the whole bomb squad thing, I'm like, you're in the desert, like, if there is any danger, the characters who are there can just, like, they can get away long before a bomb squad can get there.
I think it's more if they open it and the bomb goes off.
Right, okay.
The bomb squad would check it for explosives before it gets opened. They'd scan it.
Oh, so you're saying Morgan Freeman just jumps the gun and just goes, I'm opening this bitch.
Pretty much, because he's like, screw it, I'm going to retire anyway, might as well go out.
So, but obviously it ends with that fight. The final moments of the film is Brad Pitt sat in the back of the police car and he's got that dead stare on his face, like he's being like this city has done this to him. It's completely to make his point. He's had to do to Brad Pitt's character what Freeman was saying was going to happen all along.
Yeah, but it only took a week.
It only took a week, yeah. It was condensed. And I think that's kind of the point, is that when it happens gradually, you don't notice it. But when it's shocking and it's in a week, like when it's one sharp jolt, people do notice and people pay attention. And the funny thing is in a weird way, it kind of worked because Morgan Freeman's character, ends, he's talking to his captain. And he doesn't outright say he's going to be a cop still. He just says he's going to be around, which could be interpreted in a number of ways. But then there's this final little bit of narration where he brings up this quote, I can't remember who it was from, maybe Hemingway, but I could be.
I think it was, yeah.
About how the world is essentially good and it's worth fighting for, and he says, I agree with the second part, and it's like, and it's him making this kind of statement like, yeah, I sort of lost that along the way, because he even mentions during the film that he used to be like Brad Pitt's character. He cared about the cases. He cared about saving the people. Because at one point Brad Pitt promises to someone, "I'm going to find your husband's killer. Like I'm going to do that. I'm promising you, I'm going to do this." He cared about justice.
He's like, you really meant that, didn't you? You weren't just saying it like everyone else does.
And it's like at the end of the movie, he does like in a weird way, John Doe has succeeded because he's turned this good cop good again. Because this cop now cares about his job.
He's made someone care, because that was John Doe's whole thing, is like, no, this is disgusting that we tolerate all this abhorrent situations just as normalcy, and it's like we should be fighting against this. So he's going to trying to shock the system into fighting against it.
He's almost a really weird, talking about him being a mix of different characters, he's almost a really weird mix of Batman and the Joker. Like
He is.
he's like crazy and like does psychotic things like the Joker, but it's for the same kind of purpose that Batman works on, and that he uses, that's why he dresses as a bat and like scares, and jumps out of the shadows, because the dramatic examples, like the idea of like a myth of the Batman will scare people into action, whereas if he's just a person, like, if he's just a politician with a mic, people are used to
Doesn't
that,
have
they
the
know
effect,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel Fincher took a lot from Batman for this stuff. Like even John Doe, the idea that he doesn't have a past. He left it behind. It's not important.
It's very
It's
Joker.
just who he is now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there is a lot of that stuff in there. But what I think impressed me, it's been a good decade since I watched this, and I'd forgotten about a lot of what the actual themes of the movie were. Like I remembered all the money shots, as it were, but I didn't remember what it was really
that's
about.
What people do tend to remember, because kind of as the point of the movie is, these are the big shocking things. You remember those, you notice those, but all the regular stuff you kind of just don't even really pay that much attention to.
Because I was actually a little bit worried at the start of the movie when they go to the first proper crime scene with the fat guy, the obese, the glutton kill, we'll call it. I was a little bit worried because I was like, yeah, this is shot well, but like I was getting that, this is kind of what Saw was ripping off. I'm like, am I going to? Am I not going?
Where's the meat to this?
Yeah, am I not going to be into this as much because I feel like, oh no, I've been here and done this before. It's not as impressive anymore. Like, is the rest of the movie actually going to like hold up? And sure enough, once it got going and once I got the themes, and I like how even from the opening scene, because as much as I said I was worried at that point, even before that, the opening scene of the movie is Morgan Freeman's character like getting ready for work. He puts on his jacket. And you can tell he's a very organised man. He's got the you'll know what it's called, the keeps time. Use it.
Metronome.
Metronome. Thank you. When you're playing music, use it to keep time.
Sorry, I was just that hand motion. I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, he ends up throwing it across the room later on when he gets agitated. But and which again is another thing, the fact that he throws that and then he gets up and he starts throwing the knife at the dartboard. This again, it's he claims that he's like apathetic, but really he's starting to care again.
That's it. When the metronome's going, it's the idea that everything's got a rhythm. Everything just keeps ticking along, but there's nothing different.
But he's very regimented. He's got like his badge, his pen, he's like all these things, his keys, like they're all out in a row, and he puts them in one by one. He's very by the book. He's very, there's no passion in it. It's very, like you say, regimented and normal and everyday and routine. And as soon as I got that, okay, right, they've done a good job. Like in one scene, I understand, at least at a base level right now, who this character is. And obviously, once they start talking to each other, you get more. But scene number one, I already understand this person.
Yeah,
it's good storytelling.
It's interesting. Well, I say interesting. It's smart that it opens with that instead of the shocking scene, because it kind of gives you. It's like, no, this film is more than just the shock. Yeah,
it's kind of like I said, like he's the heart of the story. It's like this is what the story's really about. This is the character who this is really about. Yeah. I mean, it's about the others too. Don't get me wrong, but he's the main one. He's the one that is the greatest affected.
In a sense, he's the hero because he's the one who has the growth and that upward journey.
And everything that happens between John Doe and happens to Brad Pitt's character, it all happens and it affects his character. It's all about what it does to him.
Yeah.
So he is the central core. But as much as we have glossed over the actual crimes, the actual murders, I suppose we should have some fun talking about those and the various.
We should. I think we just wanted to be clear how much better this is than Saw.
Oh, sure.
Doing all that stuff. This has the substance to back up the cool visuals.
It does. I mean, there was one or two the whole clue things that I thought were just a little bit much.
A little contrived.
Yeah, like the whole the wife looks through the photos and the painting's upside down, so they take down the painting and it's like, oh, there's nothing. Oh, there's fingerprints that make a word. Just a little bit too much. The same with the first one when he realizes that the bits of metal come from the floor because the fridge has been scraped out. I'm like, did he really expect them to like notice the scrapes in the floor? Like it felt like assuming they would find it just felt a little bit much.
I think it's especially weird given that how by the time he meets them, he's going, I respect you a lot more than I thought. You've increased my respect for law enforcement, and so why would he expect them to find it if he didn't have that respect to begin with?
Maybe that's the point. Maybe it's a test. Like if they find that, then they
deserve to. Yeah,
they deserve to track him down, kind of thing.
That's fair.
Do you know? I like that part of the plot is that they find his apartment that he's using because apparently the FBI has this watch list. It's almost kind of like present day stuff with the internet and like keywords that sort of stand out and make them sort of take notice. But the idea that if people are reading books about nuclear weapons, or Mein Kampf, I think is the other example he uses, but books that maybe trigger, well, or maybe we should keep an eye on this person if they're reading all these books, like, so this list has been kept. And what amused me about that is that is maybe the one plot point that kind of dates it in a weird way, because it's all about, someone would go to the library to get all these books, whereas these days they'd probably just Google things and so on.
You'd look at the internet search history instead.
You'd either look at the internet search history, or if they're on something like Audible, maybe you'd look at their Audible accounts, kind of thing. That's the one thing that's changed quite a bit. Not that libraries aren't still in use, and not that we shouldn't still have libraries, because of course we do, and we should. But
a fantastic public service.
They are indeed. But of course, but obviously they're not as widely used as they were, before the internet became so mainstream.
It certainly wouldn't be the go-to for the police.
Yeah, certainly the person looking for the books would have a lot of other avenues to get the information, just not the one. Don't get me wrong, in the 90s they could still buy the books, but
Ironically, going to the library now would probably be safer, because no one would bother checking the library. They'd just go, what they Googled. Actually.
Yeah. Also, your book's much more likely to be there to get. Like, if you're looking for a specific book, there's a better chance now that it's not been checked out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Almost comes in waves. Like, everyone's going to realise that and go back to the library. Then it's going to get too busy again. And they'll be like, oh no, the book's never there. Then it'll be years of like just using the internet again. They're like, oh no, back to the library. Anyway, so
they'll never die completely.
So the crime scenes, we have the obesity one, where he's been forced to eat until he basically ate too much, and then because it says he kicked him and then he burst open.
Yeah. It's a horrifying image.
It's pretty horrifying. And then we have the lawyer who, Greed, yeah. I was just trying to think of how he actually died. I couldn't remember. I remember the blood written on the floor saying Greed, but I was just trying to think of how he actually died.
Good point. I think it's the least interesting one, isn't it?
It's the least memorable, certainly, because I can't remember it.
I'm struggling to remember that one as well. I can see the image of him.
And I just watched it. Then who was third? Third was the guy in the bed who'd been tied up for a year.
Yeah, Sloth.
So that was a very memorable thing. He looked really. He looked almost like a zombie, quite frankly, when they went in.
Well, that's it. Like he goes in, they think he's dead, and you do as well. Like he legitimately looks like, oh no, this guy's dead.
He looks like a corpse, yeah. And then when they get him to a hospital, it's like, yeah, he's basically already dead. He's brain dead. He's never going to recover from this. He's done. And then we have, I think the prostitute was next.
Yes.
Yeah, who was killed by a contraption, we'll call it. It was basically not quite a strap-on, because it's meant for a man, but it's basically a sort of a strap-on like device that goes over like a condom almost on the front of the penis, but on the front of this device is a giant blade, and then he apparently forced this. This is weird saying this, given the character goes by John Doe, but the John, as it were, to have sex with the prostitute with this giant bladed weapon attached to his penis.
Yeah, and because then we have that great interrogation scene, and he's just like, no, he was forcing me. He had a gun at my throat. It was like in my mouth.
Oh yeah, he's terrified. Yeah, he's which, by the way, did you recognise that actor?
I did, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what from.
Do you know what I remember? Because he's got a very similar agitated type scene in the other movie, and you have watched it because we done it in this show.
Go on.
Alien Resurrection.
Okay.
He's the one who had the alien in him, like the whole movie, and he starts freaking out like as the movie goes on. Because when he started freaking out, I'm like, oh, it's him, because he freaks out almost the exact same way when he thinks he's going to die.
It's like when you just recognise someone, it's like, yeah, I've definitely seen him somewhere.
Yeah, and this was just a couple of years before that, so I don't know what he's been in since, but certainly he's got 2 big movies attached to his name.
If we ever see him freak out again.
Yeah, maybe we'll recognise him. So we had that. That one was memorable because it's hard not to remember that picture, because they've got a Polaroid of the device. The shop owner who made it for him is like, because he's pissed off that they stole the photo from him, but you just see this photo and it's like, oh shit, that's how, because you don't see it in the scene. Like, they go to the crime scene and there's a body under the sheets and the guy's like cowering in the corner and he's just like terrified. He's like, get this thing off of me. And then you see this photo of this ridiculous contraption.
It's horrifying.
So there's that. And then fifth,
Pride.
Yeah, that was the woman with the pills.
Because then they're 6 and 7 at the end.
Yeah. So like we said, he'd mutilated her face and gave her 2 options: phone in one hand for help, which would have saved her.
But she has to live disfigured.
Yeah, and she's obviously a vain person. That's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Or pills to kill herself, which she chose.
My favourite is he literally cut off her nose to spite her face.
Yes. On the nose, one might say.
Yes, one might if one wasn't such a douche.
Oh dear. So that's good fun. And then of course we get to the ending with John Doe coming in, and obviously he's been ripping off his fingerprints so that no one can detect him from crime scenes and whatnot, because they don't even find any in his house. Like, his apartment's just free of fingerprints, and they're like, I can't believe that. But hey ho.
Maybe he just always wears gloves. I mean, he clearly didn't, but they didn't.
Oh yeah, from their perspective, I'm sure. Yeah, we know he didn't wear gloves. We know what he was doing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I complained a second ago, and I forgot what it was now. It'll come back to me.
It better.
What else would you like to talk about, Connor?
What else would I? I think just the way it ends. Like, I think it's really interesting when it ends in an uplifting way, given that the whole movie's grim and kind of horrifying.
Yeah, because you get the impression, because Freeman's character, like, we see that he's alone. He doesn't live with anyone. He lives alone.
It keeps talking about, he was never married, he was close, but he never quite got there.
Doesn't have friends, and obviously it sets up that his girlfriend was pregnant and she got rid of it, and he's never... I actually really liked when he talked about that. He said, not for a second have I ever doubted that I made the right choice, but I still wish I'd made the other choice. And I thought that was a very interesting sort of statement to make. Like, it's like, okay, like that has depth to it. Like, what does that mean exactly? It's like, it was the right choice to make, but deep down he still kind of wanted to make the other one. He still regretted, because he says to Gwyneth Paltrow, don't, if you decide to not have the baby, never tell him that you were pregnant. Which of course John Doe ruins at the end of the movie. Because what way to find out your just murdered wife was pregnant, and then the killer telling you that she begged for the life of her child inside her.
It's very rough, isn't it?
That is how you find out. Yeah.
I mean, that's the moment that pushed him over the edge as well.
Of course, yeah.
Like, that's it. That when he realizes that's the moment where he's like, oh no, there's no going back now.
But that's what I was getting to, though, is that I feel like this is like Morgan Freeman's first friend in a long time. Like, he's grown to attach to these people. He cares about them.
Yeah.
And like he's seen kind of hope, and he's seen it stripped away again, and again that's another striving reason for why it changes his entire mentality, and why at the end it's like, okay, I'm not ready to stop this now.
And I think that's what it says a lot about his character, that ultimately they kind of lost, and Brad Pitt was his friend was broken, but that's what inspires him to try again.
Like he says, it's worth fighting for.
Yeah, it's a remarkable resilience.
Yeah, it's great character work.
It really is. Yeah,
great character work. It's told very well, outside of dialogue being sometimes hard to hear. So I'll give it that. But hey, again, even just simple little things like the apartment they bought. Brad Pitt and Gwyneth Paltrow, like the subway, like, makes the whole thing shake. But when they were being sold the house, and the real estate agent was like showing them around, like, he'd always time it just in short bursts when he knew there was going to be no trains going past.
And again, this is another one of those things where it's this awful thing that they just kind of have to live with, and they're just like, we'll get used to it. Yeah,
they get used to it, exactly. Yeah, really, really simple. And even just in a more broad sense, the idea that there's something underneath, like, to discover. Like, once you come into the city, like, it seems like you're fine at first, but as you're there for a bit longer, you discover more things that you don't like about it. But then again, you get used to it. Because even she's like talking about when she meets Freeman for that coffee or whatever, she says that, I'm a school teacher, like I teach 5th grade, and I've been looking around the schools, but they're all kind of awful, and I don't want to get stabbed by one of my students. Is basically the sentiment. Shouldn't say that line, but you get that kind of feeling.
The thoughts there, yeah.
So no, it very very well done.
It is.
It's been a long time since I've seen it. It was nice to revisit it and sort of rediscover why it's well regarded, and it's not just the gritty murders, which are good. Don't get me wrong, but it's more than that.
It definitely is, yeah. I think, like I say, it's one of these movies that's, like from the 90s, but it's still regarded as, almost getting to be like a classic almost in people's minds. And you think it's like, okay, did it deserve that, or was that just the big moment sticking with people?
Yeah, I will say it's starting to feel weird now how old these movies from the 90s are. Like, this is 22 years old.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because I remember, like, obviously I didn't see it when it first came out, because I was like, what, 6? But when I did see it when I was a teenager, I was like, it still felt recent-ish. Like, it was like, oh, it's only, 10 years old or whatever.
No. I say this all the time, but I forget just how long ago 90s was. And I don't realise until I look at some of the movies where I go, oh yeah, this is from the 90s.
And then you think, well, wait, yeah, I am that age. That's right.
Yeah, pretty much.
Shit, I'm getting old.
There you go. It's just, when they don't have, like...
By the way, I realise that's an absurd statement when we're both in our 20s. Like, some people who are in their 40s are going to hear us say that and go, what? You're not even old yet. How dare you say that?
The idea of how much the world's changed. Because, you see these films, and, there's no mobile phones.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And you kind of go, yeah, this was actually quite a while ago. Like, those are the things that make you realise that you wouldn't get away with that now unless it was intentionally a period piece.
Yeah, it's one of my fun things to do, actually. Is like how many movies from the 80s and 90s are ruined if you add in mobile phones to the equation.
Lots of them.
Yeah, a lot of them do. I think that's why if you're making a horror movie now, like, consider just setting it in the past, because honestly it's hard to do it now with at least the same way.
Or do what It Follows did and just make it weird and ambiguous.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, with It Follows, that's a really interesting one where I don't know if phones would actually affect it. Like, who would they call?
No, it's actually, I think phones probably wouldn't change this movie that much, other than, like the scene in the library, like you said.
Yeah, that's the one where technology would change it, where he probably wouldn't be going to the library to get his information.
But you'd still have the same point of the scene, then just find the information in a different way.
Yeah, it wouldn't change much.
But I don't think it would change much of the movie overall.
If you remember Die Hard, a lot of that movie's him trying to get a call out for help. Like, so much of that would change because he'd probably just have a phone on him. And even if he didn't have his phone on him when everything went down...
Someone's got one.
Yeah, he'd find one somewhere, probably. Maybe not, actually. Now I'm thinking about it, like, everyone... Because the building, like, he goes up to all these floors that are, like, deserted and stuff. They're still being built.
The better question would be, why would he not have his phone on him?
Because he doesn't even have his shoes on.
Fair point.
That's another big plot point. Is that he's in the middle of like massaging his feet because he's feeling weird from the play, and he's he's got a vest and pants on, and that's it. Like, so,
sure.
Like,
phone could be in his pocket still.
It could be, but it wouldn't be that unbelievable for it not to be.
It wouldn't be unbelievable. No,
it would literally just be a shot of the phones on the desk, but he had to run because Guy with gun was coming.
It would change the film a little bit because he'd be trying to get back to his phone.
Sure, yeah, I'd get that,
but not massively.
But not, even then again, not necessarily, because if he knows that it's like right next to all the people with guns, he wouldn't know that's off limits. He wouldn't go there. So then maybe it would become, again, stealing the radio from the guys that he kills, which is what he does in the movie. So maybe it actually wouldn't change as much as I think it would. But there's other examples, certainly.
There are. That was maybe a poor choice.
That was a poor choice, but Home Alone, completely...
Yeah.
Because part of the plot of that movie is that the phone line in the street's dead, and that's why they can't just phone him. That's gone. Assuming
the kid has a mobile.
Which these days, probably.
Yeah, probably.
And even if not, like that, I mean, Home Alone was pretty like hard to swallow anyway. The idea that the cop goes once and chaps on the door and gets no response and then just never goes back, like, that's hard to swallow anyway, as it is. But
it is. Yeah.
Anyway, we're going down a tangent with.
We are. The point was, this movie is in a sense relatively timeless in the fact that technology doesn't affect it all that much. In the core story, the themes, it all still functions with or without. And
also the fact that, again, it's not even in like a real city. Like, that's kept... So it almost exists in its own little pocket that is kind of timeless because it's not really in a real
It's not a real place. It's not, it's not quite the reality.
Yeah. So, that's 7.
You didn't remember that other complaint then?
I didn't. That's going to bug the shit out of me now.
It's gonna pop at your head in like 10 minutes after we finish. We'll be in the middle of doing something else, and you'll be like, "God damn it, that 7 thing."
It wasn't a big thing, I don't think. It was relatively minor, but there was something that came into my head. But either way, it doesn't really matter. It's just it's a really good film, really strong characters, obviously strong visual style, good core kind of good core story and like arc to it for the main characters. But no, 7, very good. So I guess we'll rate it.
Yeah.
Go on, rate it 7 out of 10. I dare you.
No, I'm giving it a solid 8.
Solid 8. 8.5 is where I'm going.
Fair enough.
8.5.
I wouldn't argue that much.
Yeah. No, I think 8's too low. I'm just not quite feeling the 9. 9.
No, I mean, I can go to an 8.5 at a stretch, but I'd have to think about it.
I'm not actually sure what I'd rank, Fincher's top 3 would be. Yeah, and I feel like this would probably be in the top 3, but I'm not really sure what the order would be. I'd have to really think about it, actually. I probably need to rewatch a couple of his movies to help decide that. I know a couple that wouldn't be up there.
Yeah, I think there's 1 or 2 I still need to see off the top of my head.
But no. So 7, extremely good. If you haven't checked it out somehow, then obviously do that because modern classic. And it's not even that modern anymore.
No,
because we're all getting old.
Ah, damn it, time.
Dear. All right, so that is 7. Like I say, it was voted for by our patrons of a bunch of us. It was really close between that and Silence of the Lambs for the record. That was the other one in the vote, which I was kind of expecting one of those two to win because
those are the two that were the obvious ones.
Yeah, but the vote that's up right now in Patreon for next month's bonus episode is all robot and cyborg and android movies because obviously we have Blade Runner, a new Blade Runner movie coming out next month, so we thought we'd tie it in. We usually try and pick a theme that ties into something else that's coming out or happening.
We like to be on brand.
Yeah, so the options are RoboCop, Ex Machina, Big Hero 6 and iRobot. So if you're a patron or you want to become a patron, go over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and you'll find the links to vote on that. But otherwise, that is us. So like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. But no, so thanks for watching. Keep watching movies, and we'll see you next time.